So we have a very enthusiastic, excited, and a very talented research scholar from IIT Bombay, Parijat Das. He decided to join the prestigious IIT Bombay for his research work, and this time he is completing his 2 years of research in the protein crystallography lab under the able guidance of Professor Dr. Prosenjit Bhowmik. He is currently working on transaminases.
Crystallography or protein crystallography is not only a science, it is also a conglomeration of art and science and a little bit of luck. So you be an engineer, you be a biologist, you be a chemist, a physicist, or a mathematician, you can directly contribute to this field of crystallography. Is absorbed by the electron, and then all these electrons get excited. However, the energy of X-ray is not so much that the electrons can be just thrown away from the atom. So what happens is these electrons, they scatter this energy in the form of another X-ray in all the directions. And this is something we call as the elastic scattering. You can understand that even though in the 1800s, there was report of hemoglobin crystals that were found in earthworm blood, it would be another century later when you could actually visualize the first hemoglobin molecule. Protein crystallography is also nicknamed as the Nobel science. The same drugs that were used for HIV was also used for the SARS protein molecules so that it could be repurposed and the pandemic can be stopped. Something called the affinity tag, and the most commonly used affinity tag is the polyhistidine tag. So it is a hexamer or a dodecamer of histidines, and we have an affinity column which will have nickel ions in it. So what happens when you run the proteins, the protein of interest will bind to the nickel column using this histidine, since it forms a conjugate structure with the nickel molecule, and the other proteins will just wash off. So the X-ray just passes out, right? It does not collide with any electron or the nuclei of the atom. So most of the X-rays will just pass out and will hit the middle of the detector in the cryo buffer. So what happens is around the crystal, the cryo solution will just form a layer, and this will prevent the water molecules from getting freezed. Properly arranged, and because of this there is Bragg's law coming into effect, and the X-ray that diffraction that is coming, the scattering comes in the same phase, and because of that there is something we call as the constructive interference. The crystals in A did not give any kind of diffraction, so you can never say which crystals will give you good diffraction until and unless you mount it. So now you find out this phase, scientists have tried a lot of methods. And if you do not know the native phase of the molecule, you can never find out the structure of the tailless cat. So how did he find out the structure? What if it is a novel protein structure? There are some specific dots which you can connect, and you can give me the structure of a bird. Now you can very easily connect the dots and tell me that this is how a bird looks like. It started in 1976 with only 7 protein crystal structures. And now in 2020, there are at least more than 1.5 lakh of protein crystals. So it has been a huge increase in the number of structures that has been developed in this course of time. It was a beautiful, this is the ideal electron density map, how it should look like, where there is no overlap of electron density diagrams, and you can see that there are individual electron density maps. But so since this roof was very flexible, I could never find out how this roof looked like. Only in one of the monomer I could find the loop. In the other monomers I could not visualize the loop. 0 hours at the start of my reaction and also at the end of the reaction. Since transaminase is a slow enzyme, I do a reaction for about 14 hours. So what I saw was at the start of the reaction, PLP gave me a very characteristic and high peak at around 413 nanometers. But at the end of the reaction, almost all the PLP molecules were converted into PMP, which gives a characteristic peak at around 323 nanometers. There were some other enzymes of the same structure which had a high glucose tolerance. So he tried to find out by sequence analysis that why is this happening. illuminate a protein crystal with a very high intensity X-ray. And you can obviously understand that this protein will just get radiation damage, and this crystal will get destroyed. But if it is done only in the matter of femtoseconds, what is happening is we can collect the diffraction data, and if you run a series of such crystals through that X-ray beam, you can get the entire structure of the crystal protein, and it will give you a very high resolution image. There is a beautiful and funny story about when Prem first got his crystal structure. So he was really struggling with in getting his crystal structure. So iterating Prem, what he said was that one night he was just looking at his crystals. It was at around 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and then he saw that something is there in the crystal plates. So he called up sir and he said, "Sir, kuch to dikh raha hai." And at 2 a.m. sir came, and then at the middle of the night they diffracted that crystal, and they could see beautiful diffraction images.
So you talked about isomorphous replacement, where you replace methionine with selenomethionine to solve structures of novel proteins. Does that by any chance change the native structure of the protein under investigation?
Right. So this is a very beautiful question. So what happens, it is not isomorphous replacement, but multiple anomalous wavelength anomalous dispersion. So what you do is, in place of methionine, you are using selenomethionine. So what happens is, this selenium, this might interact a little bit with the structure of the protein, and it might slightly change the structure of the protein. This might happen, but usually it is not the case. Usually the structure is not so much deviated from its native structure that you will get a very odd shaped structure. So that's not the case. If that was there, then people would not have used it so much. So first and foremost, I want to thank all of you again for attending my talk. And some people I have left out are Chinmay, Barsa, and Ishan. They were very kind enough to provide me with some of the insights into what they work on, and they helped me build the slides, the application slides. And something I want to tell to you all budding researchers is that your project is important, obviously, but what is more important is a good lab environment. Always try to have a good lab environment, and always try to be amicable with your guide and your lab mates. So they are the ones who you can consider as family. I am very lucky enough that I have a beautiful lab environment, and all my lab mates are always helpful, and to top it all off, I have a beautiful guide. So he's a very amazing person. So that you must inculcate within yourself. So research is not only about science, it is also about compassion and other emotion. Or not only your IQ, you have to raise your EQ as well.
I think what's amazing about research is that it's not just one field that you stick to, but rather an amalgamation of different sciences, different fields of research coming together to create something much better and much bigger. And that is something that we at Researcher on Web try to do here. We try to bring out this research and put it forth to a larger audience, so that people can get to know what each field is doing, and then different fields can come together and collaborate and make this happen.